Good morning. Poor Vida. What a nice big crowd we have here today. The season has started. Yeah. And it's wonderful to see everybody and find old friends like Donna coming up to walk is exciting. Uh, but anyway, welcome to this week's Dharma Talk. Thank you all for joining us here at beautiful Bali Rica in Costa Rica and on the internet. We're going to open this morning with a guided meditation with Lisa Virtue.
Good morning.
Go.
Morning, Lisa. Look at you. Beautiful faces. Excellent. All right. Today, just something has been coming to mind, and I think we could all use this. And part of it connects to something I learned a few years ago, which just blew my mind, was that people's inner world isn't all the same. in terms but in terms of, for example, in my mind, I've got a narrator that's just constantly talking. Like my mind is, and I can rehearse something I want to say, but it is like a dialogue all the time. And there's some people that don't have that. And I was like, what? No, I'm like, what do they have? They're like, they've got nothing. Seriously? Like that's what we aim for in meditation, is that blank, and they just come with that. So that I didn't know that was a possibility. But they seem to be like, I don't know, maybe 5% of the people have nothing. So for the rest of us, calming that inner narrator is kind of what I see the key to meditation. And when we do, then we have more access to what's beyond that. Even just being able to be with ourselves and in quiet and peace and not have chirping going on. So that's sort of the perspective I want to take today in recognizing that, if you have it, that part that chats to you. I think some of the tendency is to fight that part when you're trying to meditate and like, I'm going to fight that thing and make it stop and push it down. And I think maybe instead the idea of suspending. If you suspend your breath, like if you were going to hold your breath, you could hold your breath and be like, or you could just suspend it lightly. And there's a big difference in the quality of that. So I think just when it chats at you, just like, I'm just going to suspend. I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm going to pause, like hit the pause. And it'll start back up. And you're like, oh, I'm going to suspend it again. So we'll do our silent meditation, but seeing if we can just hit the pause button whenever that chitter chatter tries to get us. So, all right, let's close our eyes. Do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Let's take some clearing breaths to start. Just big, deep inhales and sigh out the exhale, letting go of the energies that brought us here and meeting everybody. And then starting by simply noticing that breath. Turning the focus to what the breath is doing. And noticing how long you're able to simply observe it versus having a commentary on it. And if the commentary starts, we just become aware and choose to suspend. And for the duration of the meditation, we just keep bringing ourselves back to calm and quiet. We can notice breath or the environment or the air, but suspending the commentary. Nice, big, deep breath. Bring yourself back into your body. Feeling yourself sitting on the floor, on the chair. Grounding yourself. And very gently and peacefully raise your eyelids. Come back into the present moment here. Namaste.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. In my country of origin, the United States, today is known as Black Friday. I just learned from someone that whether they call it Black Friday or not, this is celebrated today all over the world, practically, I guess, in all industrial countries. Is that true? It's the day that is the kickoff for the season of the holiday season. And it begins, it just seems wonderful to me. It begins with people after their big Thanksgiving dinner taking their lawn chairs and their blankets and sitting in the parking lots of the shopping centers, and then so that they can be there right away when the doors open and there is this stampede of shopping. It's the day when there are all kinds of bargains. So we start off the month of peace and quiet and calm, silent night, holy night. And we're in there along each other. You know, everybody's in there doing their thing. And you know what? It's all love. They're out there, you know, as I say, they got to get that waffle iron for so and so in the red Tonka truck, and they're going to beat somebody with their pocketbook if they try and can't get to it. It's generosity in its own form. And things take a lot of different forms. But anyway, so it's Black Friday. That kicks off the get. Was it Charlie Brown's little brother who said, "I love Christmas"? It's get with GIT. Anyway, so that's one new thing. Another thing, a change of season here. I am not sure because we never marked it down whether today marks the end of our sixth season and the start of our seventh season of Dharma Talks or not. It was in November, but I'm not sure when, and I don't. You never figured it out, did you, Sharon?
I'll check.
Do you have any way to find out? I don't know. We started doing this just sort of
How many years ago?
either six. This is either the end of the sixth, start of the seventh, or the start of the sixth. One of the other. Anyway,
It might be the start of the seventh.
I think it's the start of the seventh. I think so too. So that's pretty interesting. There's something that started off just as sort of an idea and a topic of conversation ended up being such a wonderful thing for all of us, particularly for me. So that's interesting. It also today marks the day when we will start a new series of talks, not on the first two Noble Truths, which focus primarily on understanding suffering in the world. Now we're going to begin a series of talks, the third and the fourth Noble Truths. Not the truth of suffering, not the truth of the causes of suffering, but the truth of the cessation of suffering and the eightfold path to enlightenment. So seems auspicious day to start this round of talks. You have to go through the suffering. It's part of the thing. You can't just start with happiness and stay there. You really need all the information, all the things we've talked about. Uh, the fact that life is continuous change and it's cyclical change. So it's a sort of unchanging change. It goes round and round, and the music comes out here. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to start talking about the third noble truth by finding a way to make it really relevant that everybody can get to real easily. And what I've come up with is that in 1979, a microbiologist from MIT named John Kabat-Zinn uh, became really interested in trying out the meditation that he was immersed in on whether there was a mind body connection, that meditation could help people with pain and with suffering. So he went to the University of Massachusetts and he asked them if he could have a room and if they would bring to him their patients who could no longer be helped by conventional medicine. They were at death's door, they were palliative care. Uh, the only requirement was that they were ambulatory, they could stand up and move. So they said, okay, and they gave him a room in the basement, a little room in the basement. And thus began mindfulness based stress reduction, MBSR. It was so effective that now it is taught all over the world in hospitals. Something like 10,000 hospitals now provide it. But the thing was that John Kabat-Zinn said we cannot give it a spiritual name. We can't call it, even an Eastern philosophy or certainly not Buddhist religion. But mindfulness is the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path. Is the central factor of meditation. But he was wise because it would have been rejected by many, many people had they made that religious affiliation. It's really important to recognize that this is universal. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or Hindu or Muslim or Jewish or whatever. Mindfulness is mindful. So anyone who has a little reservation about it can forget it. It will work. It works for everybody. Now, John Kabat-Zinn did something besides presenting it strictly as a secular practice. Uh, he, how do I say this? Well, as I say, he actually restructured it. I don't know a good way to say this. This is not the same exactly mindfulness that is taught by Buddhists. The Buddhist idea of mindfulness is much broader. It covers much more territory. And John actually produced a definition that has become the Western definition of mindfulness. It's one that everybody pretty much knows. I'm sure everybody here does, which is to pay attention in the present moment with intention, non-judgmental. Everybody got that? It's awareness in the present moment, right now, right here, with intention. You can set your own intention. It can be to overcome pain. It can be to do anything that you want it to do, but non-judgmentally, and that's an important one. So it narrowed it to this, and what happened was it actually took root right away. He hadn't been teaching it for very long, and the doctors came and they had seen so much improvement in their patients that they said, you know what, they got together and they said, why don't you give us a class? We as doctors, we are under a great deal of stress. So why don't you do it for us too? And he did. And then the doctors told the other doctors, and so on and so on. And the nurses got in on it and what have you. Now, mindfulness is taught in schools and all kinds of places. So one person with one idea was able to present it, and it really has been a tremendously helpful thing throughout the whole world. So we're going to approach liberation, freedom from suffering with a mindfulness approach. I bet there's not a soul here today that has had a life totally free of anxiety, perhaps depression, anger, trouble with relationships, trouble with money, trouble with health. Those are the three big ones. And so it's a world that changes and presents itself in so many different forms, like Black Friday is a way of giving, as is Silent Night. And in life, suffering actually is the motivation, and from it can grow a tremendous amount of spiritual well being. And you've heard me say it before many times, everything in Buddhism is about your well being. It's all addressed to well being. So let's begin. Uh, Everyone also has heard me say, and they've read it and they've heard it, a very catchy phrase or saying in Buddhism on the third noble truth: pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Now, this is legal, as we've talked about before. Pain and suffering are legally separated. If you go to sue somebody, you can sue for pain, you can sue for suffering, or you can sue for both. There's a very clear definition legally, but it's not really accurate when we're talking about regular life because the mind body connection is so strong that you can have pain and you can understand that's physical. And you can have suffering and you know that's emotional or just mental. But the two interact all the time. You really cannot totally separate them. But if you really want to get on the path to enlightenment, which is liberation from suffering and the establishment of a lasting happiness, it's a definition. Liberation, freedom from suffering, and the establishment of a lasting happiness. If you really want to get on that path, which is the fourth noble truth, you start here with the third noble truth, which says, yes, this is possible. This is not a pipe dream. This is possible. And the Buddha said, I did it. I proved it to myself that it can be done. And I'm an ordinary human being. And if I can do it, so can other people. So what is the first thread we pull? We say, okay, I need to be able to differentiate pain from suffering. This will stand me in good stead because then they won't get so confused and caught up with one another. The example the Buddha used was being shot with an arrow. Now, it depends on the circumstances. You get shot with an arrow and it's in your shoulder, and the first thing you want to do is get it out of there because it is so physically painful. You're not thinking about anything else initially. You're into the physical pain. I need it out. I need it out. So the arrow is pulled out, and with the removal of the physical immediate distress, there comes the suffering. If you don't know who did it, who did this to me? Why did they do it? Who are they? Where are they? You become angry. Retaliation thoughts arise. Revenge. I'm going to get this guy, whoever he is. It's even worse suffering if it's someone you know. So again, how could they do this to me? Why would anybody want to do this to me? All these thoughts are suffering, and they're separate from the initial pain. But the two end up together. Now, for those of you who were here for the talk on Tonka, by the way, I don't know why, but I made several errors in that talk. One of them is that I misspelled it for you. If you want to look it up, it's Thanka, not Tanka, or it's Thangka. But you remember the last outer ring is conditions, causes and conditions. It's called dependent origination or independent origination, both. It has 4 or 5 names. But what it is telling you in brief is everything happens as a result of causes and conditions. This goes back to the beginning of time. What caused this to happen? And what is the next link in the chain of happenings? This is karma. So you talk about karma to begin with in the Tanka, which is either positive or negative. Positive karma leads you towards enlightenment. Negative karma leads you away from it. But if you have a cycle of causes and conditions, you got it wrong if you think you can fix a problem by making the chain stronger. The Buddha said no. If you want to really eliminate the circumstance, you break the chain that led to it. So let's think about this a minute. I don't know, I want you to catch this. If you're angry, something made you angry. All right? The more you fight that anger, the stronger it gets. And then there are actions taken. And then that adds another chain. Each time an action originates from that origination, that cause, that condition, it gets bigger and stronger. But if you can sit down and release the anger, just let it go. All the things that would have happened had you maintained that anger are not going to happen. That chain is broken. So you're not going to go home and kick the dog and the dog's going to bite the cat. And, you've broken that chain. The first intention, the very first intention in Buddhism, there are 3 main intentions. The very first one is renunciation, which is a big word for letting go. If you want liberation from anything, you need to learn how to let go. You need to learn how to understand the causes. That was noble truth number 2. And once you understand the causes, you need to make the intention to let go. And then you follow through with the actions that follow the intention. That makes sense to everybody? It's really not rocket science. It really isn't. If you have an obstacle and you insist on leaving the obstacle and everybody falls over it, pick the obstacle up and get rid of it. That's basically what he's trying to tell us. If you want to be free, I'll give you a hint on something. We don't go there. But life is in our everyday realm. It's important to know this, is what we call dualistic. Everything has an opposite. So there's in and there's out and there's up and there's down and there's over and under. We have to make continuous choices. And the key word in liberation is choice, that you have the free will to decide. You can say, do I want this or don't I want this? Do I want to have this anger and hold it and embroider it and make a narrative out of it, and 30 years from now, I'm still going to be pissed off? Or do I want to let it go? All right? It's a choice. The only way to let go, this is the problem, is how. And this is where meditation comes in. And once you do that, I had an earlier thought that I wanted to put in there, and I can't think of it now. It's gone. I let go of it. It's out of here. But anyway, so this is about choice. It's about choice. You have the choice at all times to do the things that unfortunately are very frequently packaged as, here is how you get happy. Do this, do that, do the other thing, and you'll get happy. For happiness. Well, the Buddha says happiness is not a matter of getting more. It's a matter of letting go. In fact, when we talk about faith, we've covered this before, this was a big idea to me when it first hit me. In my Christian tradition, faith is a matter of holding on to something. Mm-hmm. It's what we hold on to. Is when everything else is gone, we hold on to faith. Buddhism says, you know what real faith is? It's letting go. It's when you open your hands, you open your heart, you open your mind, and you trust. Real faith is trust that the universe is going to take care of what you need taken care of. Now, of course, there is trust in holding on, just as there is attachment in holding on. But there is also the reverse, the letting go and letting be and seeing what happens as a result. It removes a lot of stress. But anyway, the fact of...
Sorry, this morning I was just came across something online that was saying, whether something works out for you as you see it, or whether it totally falls apart as you see it, the faith is trusting the universe has got you in either circumstance.
That's right.
The falling apart doesn't mean that it's a
the
catastrophe.
falling apart may be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Truly. That's good. And I think everybody here already knows that somewhere in your heart.
But it's hard when you have a situation where you're like, I could fall apart.
Right.
In that moment, it can be hard to think that it's okay to let it.
Let it be. Well, there's a saying also in Christianity, let go and let God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, God and Buddha nature are basically end up being very compatible. They're basically the same thing. They're energy. But that's why, saints wear halos. That's spiritual energy that is radiating from them. And Buddha nature is radiant energy. So they're very, very closely aligned. Um, but you're absolutely right. And in fact, Lisa and I didn't talk about her meditation first, and it was a perfect meditation for the moment. So, anyway, here we are. We've got choices. And a lot of the suffering comes from worrying. Here's a big stress. Did I make the right choice? Did I make a mistake? It's built into a dualistic world, and you can't get out of this dualistic world until you get to the ultimate letting go, which is letting go of your ego. But we won't go there today. But that is metaphysically, that is where Buddhism is taking you. So now you're working on a self, and as that self grows and grows and gets better and better, all of a sudden one day it's gone. And now you are in a non-dualism, which is now you really are one. You're one. Probably the biggest cause of suffering is a sense of separation. This is being proved all the time. The Buddha understood so many things and brought them out that are now being, people put on these things that look like shower caps with all the stuff hanging off them. And they found out he was right. A sense of loss, a sense of not knowing. Probably of all the emotions that cross between that pain and suffering border, the most difficult is grief. None of us gets out of here without experiencing grief. And grief is caught up between gratitude and loss. It's a bittersweet emotion. So, for example, the holidays were coming up, and they're full of goodies and giving and gifts and parties and love. But there's an element of extreme stress in holidays, which is all the people that are no longer here, the pets that are no longer here, and the things that we have done wrong, the regrets we have. So this is a time of a heightened sense of the suffering and the pain. Is that true for the rest of you? It is for me. Yeah. So anyway, that's we're going to follow this for the. I talked to Jeff. He's freezing to death in Minneapolis. He can't wait to get back. And
when does he come back?
He's coming back the 8th of December. And so I'm going to be here for the next 3 talks, and we're going to cover, instead of my trying to throw everything out there all at once, which I have a habit of doing, just trying to cover the whole thing. This is a big, big topic. And it's very, very personal, because each and every person has his own life story, his own problems, his own difficulties. The Chinese have the saying, life is 10,000 sorrows and 10,000 joys. And each of us have our sorrows. We have our joys. And it's a continuous balancing. It's that equanimity. So, for example, love and generosity can be on a spectrum for this wild stampede into the stores to get, to the very silent moments in the heart of gratitude that go with spirituality. It's all one spectrum. It's all below. So anyway, any questions here that might pertain to just where we are right now? It's a matter of choice. I will tell you where we are heading. We are heading to compassion for ourselves and for everyone else. If you really want to be free of suffering, you will balance any suffering you have and even any pain with compassion. But that is an acquired, practiced emotion. We all have it, but we don't really manifest it as much as we can by meditation. So, anyone have a comment?
Can I say something really?
Absolutely. Please jump in here. Who is it?
Tom.
Okay.
Tom. Sorry about my voice today.
That's all right. I'm usually coughing and choking.
So there's this about pain and suffering. There's this one equation that I put up a few weeks ago. It was in a bit of a smaller group, so I thought it might be
Say it again.
Say it again.
Say it again, Sam.
There's this one equation that I used since a few years, and it really distinguishes pain and suffering. Really nice for me.
Mm-hmm.
It goes suffering equals pain times resistance.
Suffering
equals pain times resistance.
Pain times resistance.
So without resistance, there is pain and no suffering. But with resistance times pain makes suffering. Mm-hmm. So if I do this to myself, I feel it, and I can choose to resist it or not. And I will have suffering, and when I don't, I just feel the pain.
Right.
I use it for simple things like university.
Yeah.
The learning was there, I had to get my bachelor.
Yeah.
And that was my pain. But
it was a pain.
That was a pain which I didn't.
You didn't get
at some point anymore. I just felt like I.
Well, that may be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know how many wealthy people say the best thing that ever happened to me was I flunked out of school? So you never know. You really don't.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So you just kind of, and this is a big topic. And actually, I was planning on this one next week. Along with what we talked about today, making the differentiation is the most important attribute that you need to work on if you don't have it, is to relax. Letting go requires relaxation. Any athlete can tell you this. A racehorse runs best when he's relaxed because all the energy is free of obstructions. Is the simplest way I can put that. He's now free to run because he's not arguing with anything, and he has no pain, and he's relaxed, and he knows his job. And the way athletes and the rest of us achieve relaxation is to have first a good teacher who shows you the right way to do something so you don't develop bad habits. Okay, because if you develop a bad habit, let's say in sports, it can ruin so many things afterwards. So be taught correctly, or best is most efficiently, or whatever it is that you're doing. Learn to relax, and you learn to relax by repetition. A child doesn't know how to walk. He falls down, he gets up. He falls down, he gets up. And finally, his fat little legs carry him. It's the same way in any sport. When you know how to do it and you do it repetitively until you don't think about it anymore. It's just what you do, whether it's your tennis stroke or swimming or horseback riding, which we did. So we're going to work on relaxing. Once we have made a real distinction, a differentiation between what is real pain in our lives and what is suffering, and how much must we have, and how much can we choose to chuck. That's one of the first things we do. The second is to devise a plan, and this involves, for Buddhism, learning to meditate. Because it is in stillness and in silence, or in any of the other forms of meditation that apply for you to your problem, your exact thing. That's like the tennis stroke. When Lisa's talking about your breath, the reason the Buddha gave this as the most important of all of the meditations, and it's the most boring. You just can't stand it. It gets so bad. Is that it shows you where you are not able to focus. And it doesn't say that you're bad because you can't focus, but it gives you the stroke, which is to bring your attention kindly back to the breath. Don't force it. But the awareness, oh, I sat down and I was going to count to 10, and I made it to 3, and then I went off somewhere. Wow, I didn't intend that. I intended to stay at 10. So don't get mad at yourself, but bring yourself back and start over. It is the returning to the breath. First the awareness, then the returning. It eventually gives you focus.
So Ruthie,
Yeah.
that makes sense. The step prior to that. So intellectually, you can say, yes, I get, so that when I get angry, meditation is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to focus. It's going to change it up, break the chain, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is emotionally. So you get in an anger state, you're emotional. So it's to make that connection between knowing, okay, now
first the awareness. You got the awareness.
You're aware. Okay, so then the next step is to remove yourself from the anger, or be aware enough to meditate. And that's where it's very difficult to make that habit come. So, dígame.
Well, that's the nature. That's the nature of habits. You're now making a deliberate habit. You're carving your own neural pathway, not just one that your parents handed to you, or your teachers, or that just happened by. You are now taking charge of your own inner self and outer self. This is where it begins to come home to you. You sent me a poem by Rumi, which maybe is a good time to read it. I don't want to get too many different things in today. Somewhere here, I put this in. I'm glad you brought that up. So once you get the awareness, can you see here? It says, life is a guest house.
Yep.
All right, this is by Rumi. Our favorite poem in the whole world is by Rumi. I don't have a copy of it, but Sharon sent me this one. And what Sharon is saying is step 1 is the awareness. Pay attention. Breathe in the present moment. Your breath can only be breathed in the now, with the intention of eliminating a negative emotion. And so you sit with it non-judgmentally. Don't make up stories. Don't make up excuses. Just know I have this negative emotion. I have an aversion to it. I wish it would go away. Yesterday upon the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. So now you let anger come to you. Oh, how I wish you would go away. But since you're here, let's sit together. And then you don't do anything. But now this is a poem by Rumi called Life is a Guest House that you sent to me. Read it good and loud.
This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
So that was very appropriate.
Mhm.
And as I say, we're now going into a heightened sense of awareness season. We all get a little sluggish here in the rainy season. We really do kind of get loose, And now it's, activity time, it's doing time, it's people time. And along with it, as I say, there come a lot of stresses. So we're going to mindfully base our stress reduction. You don't want to get rid of stress because stress is what makes us grow. It's what creates that. You have to have that equanimity that makes things better. It's that Goldilocks formula, not too hot, not too cold, not too hard, not too soft. You got to find that balance between the stress and the relaxation from the stress, the relief from the stress. Anyway, I need to stop talking and let somebody else talk.
Ruthie, John here.
Hey, John.
It just occurred to me that we're at the point of awareness, and that's a process of feeling anger and then being aware that we're angry instead of blaming it on somebody else. We all know people who are suffering and they wallow in it. They think there's nothing they can do about it. They come to blame it on other people or anything to take responsibility for. And it seems to me that the trigger for creating awareness of our state of mind is something a couple of people have said here in the past, and they reinforced Tom's point. I forget who said them, but one person said, just remind ourselves that we have choices.
Always.
That's a big step.
That's the big
step. A lot of people feel they have no choice.
A lot of people feel like they're imprisoned. They have no choice. That's why I say one of the first words you want to get rid of is blame.
Right. And the other thing somebody said, I forget who, was there's a tendency to say, why did this happen to me? Instead of, why did this happen for me?
That's a good one.
I'll always remember that. Yeah. I think it was said a couple of years ago.
Why does, I want to say it loud so the people on the internet can hear. Why did this happen to me instead of why did it happen for me?
No, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around? Did my dyslexia just strike again? Okay. All right, say it right, Sandy, and say it loud and proud.
Okay, so instead of saying, why did this happen to me, you say, why did this happen for me?
That's what I thought I just said.
Yeah, she did. I beg to differ.
I see a hand waving. Who's waving hand?
No, I don't have anything.
All right.
Hey, Ruthie.
Yeah.
I'll add something. I think when you have
Speak up loud, honey.
When you have like some inner voice or that inner person that you're grappling with, we all have that at times. I can't remember where I learned this from, but to give it a name.
Do what?
Yeah.
To
You
give
get-
it a name.
Or him.
Okay, give it a name.
And then when something happens, tell them to shut up.
Yeah.
I usually use that word too. But, and that kind of helps. It kind of helps to break it up, in your own mind.
Let me tell you, whatever works.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever works.
I learned to either like snap or clap your hands or something to like snap yourself out of it when that gets going, and it like works for me.
Yeah, right.
It works for me to like all of a sudden I'm like, Mark's like, what's going on? I'm like, just this thought. I just had to break the chain and move on.
Well, let me ask all of you a question. Are you harder on judging yourself or other people?
Self.
Other people.
John, you should. That's really a sort of an interesting place to start looking at your own story and how you got to where you are today. And some of you, But all of this liberation, freedom from suffering, begins with understanding that you have a choice. You are not a victim unless you choose to be a victim. And some people really are victims. There really was a Holocaust. So victimhood does exist. But for the most part, what we do even there is a choice. And so there we are. So we'll do that. And in the meantime, between now and next week, you might want to think about something you can do to relax with awareness in the present moment, with intention, non-judgmentally. Non-judgmentally is a fascinating word because we are trained to be people of good judgment, and we should be. But there again, it's a matter of uncertainty and paradox. Everything in our lives is a paradox. You're supposed to be centered, self-centered, and you're not supposed to be selfish. Well, you have to learn to differentiate all these things. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent again. So there we go. Now, it is a time to read with greater understanding, the one I read a lot. And the longer you get and the more you read it, the more sense it makes, which is, what did I do with it? That's the one we just did. I want to read. There's no Tracy. It's in here somewhere. All right. This is Albert Einstein. Think of this in pieces. A human being is a part of a whole. So we're like little grains of sand on the beach of the universe. We're part of a whole. E pluribus unum. Out of the many, the one. This is where we're moving towards in enlightenment. And then if you'll finish reading it, I'm always afraid I'll say it wrong. Listen carefully. We may stop you.
This is the kata scarf.
Hmm?
The kata scarf, respect, gratitude, affection, celebration.
No, I gave you the wrong one. It's so nice if I could see.
What is it?
It's Albert Einstein, and I was sure I had it, and maybe I don't have it. Yeah, we'll do it next time.
How does it begin?
It begins a human being was part of the whole, a part we call the universe. The whole that we call the universe.
Einstein things, but I don't see
It's
that one.
Einstein's not. He didn't come with us today. Basically, what he is saying is that our senses. I don't like to paraphrase Albert Einstein, but our senses create a kind of prison for us. And the only way to break out of that prison is through the development of an ever widening circle of compassion. When we do our metta at the end of all our meetings, we do an ever widening circle, starting with ourselves, moving to someone we love, moving to the neutral person, moving to the person in conflict, moving to everyone. If you can take this same thing on a micro scale, perhaps your anger or anything, we start here and we realize it's within us. And we can actually do loving kindness for ourselves for having that anger. And you can move it out and wish that the person you love never experienced this painful feeling. And you can carry it out. You can work these out. But if you can find, if you need to relax, do not do it with better living through chemicals, stay sober. It's the holidays. Know your limits, etc. But if you need to relax, a good thing to work on is just sitting in stillness and silence. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to watch your breathing. Just sit down. Blaise Pascal, I often quote him, the theologian, who said, all men's miseries derive from not being able to sit alone in a quiet room. So in times in the holiday season with a lot of stress and a lot of food and a lot of activities and presents and wrappings and music and all the wonderful things that go with the holiday, try to balance it by just sitting. You can, if you want to do the breathing exercise, do that. I can literally, my personal guarantee is if you do a metta every day for 2 weeks, you will notice a very powerful difference in how you feel. I don't know, I've never asked, but I don't know if everyone who does the metta feels the subtle changes from one person to the next. And if when we finally do for everyone, if you don't have a really good feeling inside, that's the feeling of compassion. So when we do the metta and we get to the last for everyone, everywhere, if that feeling comes into you, take note of it and hold it, because that is compassion. That's the feeling you get from compassion. It takes in the entirety. It's everything. Okay, so I don't know if I overtalked again.
It's time.
It's time to quit. Okay,
I guess we should do a meta.
we'll do a meta. Okay, are there any new people here who don't know how to do this? Donna?
No, Shelley.
Hey, Shelley.
Nina wants me forgot that.
Shelley said something very, very nice to me.
She actually, the last time I came here, she actually saved me.
What happened?
She told me to watch a movie which was amazing and just a very
Which
present.
movie?
Is it Searching for Sugar Man?
Searching for Sugar Man,
Searching for Sugar Man.
which I think is just a stunning movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
If you have never seen it,
I
now
haven't seen
do not, word of warning, and anybody here who has seen it will tell you the same thing. Don't let anybody tell you. It's a mystery. Don't let anybody tell you how it ends. You have to stay with it because it takes it just like a real mystery.
You know what was so amazing about him?
Hmm.
How he was so humble.
Yeah? Well,
He was so humble.
he's a very enlightened human being. Anyway, everybody know how to do metta? You all ready? Okay, if you will chime us. Oh, Donna, you've never done this.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'm going to say a name,
Okay.
myself, you, whoever. And and I'm going to say a phrase, you repeat it to yourself.
Okay.
And try and really be aware of your words and the feelings that arise, the emotion and the thoughts that come with what you are saying to that individual. Okay? Deep breath, relax. Bring yourself to your mind as if you were looking in the mirror and say to yourself, so, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease. That's equanimity. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Another deep breath. Bring to mind someone you love very much. Smile at them, say their name. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Deep breath. And now to a neutral person. If you don't know his or her name, simply address them as friend. This is someone that you know but don't know. Someone perhaps who waits on you. Or a neighbor that you pass on the road and wave to, but you've never ever really met them. And to this neutral person, look at them and say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Deep breath, and we move to a person with whom we are in conflict. Someone who doesn't like us, perhaps, or someone we don't like. Someone with whom we have a grudge, perhaps. Bring this person's face to mind. And breathing as you need to breathe, release all sense of malice towards them. Release the anger towards them. And simply say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Another deep breath. And now we place our hands over our hearts. We do this because the heart is the only symbolic place spacious enough to extend to all sentient beings everywhere. And to this vast array of people, we say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere. Be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And now we sit with that. If you're at home, you can sit there sometimes for a very long time with a very fine kind of glow that comes from that. And then when we're ready, we release our hands from our heart, open our eyes, go to prayer position, smile at our neighbors, and say, go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to the mysteries. Thank you all for being
Thank you.
here. See you next week.